base. He pays himself some more money from his bank accounts.
Okay. Outside of the silliness, we got some serious StarCraft coming up. As in the bottom left-hand side, our red Terran player is Team Liquid's uThermal.
And up here in the top right-hand side of the map, we have the blue Zerg player. It is Vanya. By the way, extremely talented Zerg player. I believe might be looking for a team right now.
You think?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too.
I believe he's teamless. I guess it's possible that he's not looking for a team but is teamless, but I don't know any players like that.
He's 100% teamless because he's there's no way the fantastic ESL admin team would let the logos file not have a team's logo. I'm certain of that. So.
That's true. Yeah.
And I would assume he's probably looking for a team.
Yeah. It's like, imagine he's like getting offers is like, we would like to pay you $8,000 per week to be on our team. Just like, I'm not really looking for a team. Like,
I really care actually. Like,
I'm kind of dating myself right now. Like,
StarCraft's not really a team game, guys.
I don't know if you guys don't even know that StarCraft isn't a team game. I mean, how much do you really want to invest in that? Well, we do have already kind of interesting little opening over here from uThermal because there's no Reaper opening here.
Yeah, just gonna bypass that Reaper right away. Just go Marine and go from there. Helps a lot against some of the super early aggression you can face against. Obviously, in the sense of missing the scout, that doesn't help. But then you speed up your reactor process, you speed up your Marine count, and that's obviously really good against a lot of the roach attacks that can come your way. So that's one of the reasons to do this. Otherwise, we have seen some of these builds which have been like a good few Marines into like a couple Hellions, and then you drop the Marines or so. And this really kind of powers up for that kind of build as well, which has been fairly popular lately. So a good few possibilities from this. We'll see exactly what we dive into very soon, as right now it looks like the factory might actually just go straight to that reactor. We might just get some Hellions out right away.
Yeah, good old usual kind of stuff. I think that's actually one thing I really appreciate about, I was gonna say uThermal, but it's actually, the more I think about it, it's like actually a lot of the players that happen to be on Team Liquid are kind of like this, where they all have kind of like the standard play, but then they all have a slightly different like standard style, right? They do things a little bit differently. I think uThermal's like that. I think Hearthstone's like that. I think Mana's like that. Clem, I guess kind of is like that, but maybe a little bit less so. But yeah,
Clem just does everything better than everyone, right? Like, that's the special stuff.
But it's definitely something to keep an eye out for. uThermal absolutely is the kind of player who does have some cheeky tricks up his sleeve. And speaking of cheeky tricks, we got a fusion core coming out.
Yeah, Battlecruiser opening to start. uThermal has mixed in a little bit of mech into his TVZ lately. A couple of Terran players have been doing this. So 2000 Atmospheres naturally is one of the mech-friendlier maps, just easy for bases, large, and that's actually quite nice for mech as well, because you do want to run around with those Cyclones sniping bases later game, and that kind of stuff actually goes a long way for you too. So yeah, just in general, this is a map which we're kind of expecting to, I know it's if we expect to see mech on, but it's not a bad one for playing mech on if you're kind of, interested in that kind of thing. It could of course be one BC into bio, that's also viable. But yeah, just we'll see very, very soon. A lot of this will be told to us by what time the gases go down on the natural expansion.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that. So we do still have a third CC and everything coming on out. And I think what's going to be interesting to me is always, when does the Zerg player realize what he's going to be facing off against? Because Vanya doesn't, not only does Vanya not have any overlords like scouting in to see the base, he doesn't have any overlords anywhere remotely near uThermal's main base. He's not going to make any attempt to actually move in and scout. So it does seem like there might be a chance. The reveal is literally the battlecruiser teleporting in.
Yeah, that's one of the issues, right? You just don't know what is happening until it's way too late. Now, we do have a lair on the way now. It's not the fastest possible lair. You went Baneling Nest initially, so that's very safe in case of Hellbats or so. At least with the lair coming up at this sort of time, you should still be able to, at a reasonable time, get into Aspire. If you need Aspire, this is double gas, by the way, so this is mech, right? So you're absolutely looking at needing Aspire against the future battlecruisers, so at least that's a positive. At least you're not kind of playing double Evo Chamber melee upgrades first, because that is where you're kind of really signing your own death sentence already, because you're putting yourself on upgrades but aren't really even that good against mech before you know about what actually is happening.
Yeah, we do see a couple of Banelings getting started on up, potentially to deal with, you know, the Hellions kind of running around or even turning into Hellbats or something. Because remember, again, like Vanya's a little bit more in the dark about what he's going to be exactly up against because of that early Marine first opening, and he snipes off the Overlord with the scouting. But now the Battlecruiser teleports in, and Vanya has covered a lot of the potential things that it could be facing off against. He already had the Spore Crawlers down. He got up those Banelings we were talking about before, but has to be careful about actually taking care of the Hellions.
Yeah, this is kind of weird because at first I was like, oh my goodness, the Lings are going to get great surround, but then I was like, well, he's going to lose all his drones if he tries to surround, because the attacking the Lings is just going to kill the drones, because the Hellions were really in the mineral line. A couple Banes connected decently and helped out, otherwise that might have been much worse. Obviously, the thing when you're playing mech is you can kind of give up these Hellions a bit more. Like if he was playing Bio, we'd be like, that's nice, but you now have no map control. With mech, you're going to keep building Hellions anyway, so you're a little bit more free to throw those Hellions into mineral lines, just like you did.
Yeah, it was kind of like watching a superhero being like blocking the bad guy's attack with cars filled with civilians. It's like, haha, here are my Lings. Oh wait, no, my drones are also dying now. Like, this is not good. This puts him into a bit of an awkward spot. He's already lost a lot of workers given this opening so far.
Yep, I mean, 15 workers going down. BC escapes off to the side. The problem is this is one of those openings where just you're spending so long droning that even the first push of a mech player, you know, if you're playing against Bio, I'd be more worried because Bio punishes losses like this more quickly than mech does. But with how long it's taken him to actually drone up and so on, I'm genuinely worried that the first mech push could even be a big problem here for Vanya. So yeah, definitely has not been a pretty start. We'll see what he can do to turn it around. I mean, you kind of have to just drone up as best you can and just sort of play it and just hope that you can deflect a couple Hellion run-bys and that you can somewhat overwhelm that first mech army. Maybe you catch out of position, maybe you counterattack against it. But that's kind of your game plan at this stage.
Yeah, I also like that uThermal is actually spending a bit of time in cleaning up some of the creep. And even though Vanya's done a nice job of respreading the creep on the top left-hand side, remember that the Queens oftentimes are going to be busy dealing with, say, the battlecruisers if they're moving around or teleporting in. I think he's repairing up one of the battlecruisers. We'll see. Do you like the idea of him potentially teleporting in, or do you just feel like corruptors are out? Just no, don't do it anymore.
Definitely don't teleport in.
Yeah,
you should never teleport in after your first PC, because especially unless you're super sure they went Evo chambers first and they delayed black, there's just no reason to, because the BC it's not about there being corruptors out when you teleport in. It's about even if the corruptors come up after you've teleported, because you don't have a teleport away for so long, right? So unless you know you can teleport in and safely fly home, you're basically risking your BCs if you teleport in. So absolutely just kind of walk them across the map, drop a couple Yamatos, teleport out. I like to call it the battlecruiser tactics. The tactics of playing against BCs, you just have to lose 3 corruptors every minute and a half.
Yeah, not a whole lot you can do once those Yamatos have locked on, unless you can just one-shot the BC before the Yamato goes off. But ooh, Baneling's getting some decent connections on the Hellions, going to be able to get a very nice cleanup on a lot of these, which, like you said, is not the end of the world by any means, but still important to keep an eye out for. This Latori going to force back one of the corruptors. Yamato tax being taken. 2 corruptors go down.
Yep, I mean, exactly what we kind of expected at the start already. Just BC's getting some damage done. Now, look at what Vanya's doing. He's just going to max out and go. This was actually one of the options I didn't really mention initially, so this is obviously something you can do as well. This whole idea is essentially, oh, well, let's just try and kill you right here and right now. Let's try and overwhelm you before you get properly set up onto that mech army. And to be fair, you can see it's doing well. That tank line died pretty quick. However, the BCs are kind of holding for now. They need to dodge out of the vials. If they can just get rid of the corruptors, they clean up everything else. But the problem is, how long does it take them to do that? BCs look as though they will be able to hold and start clearing up, but that's 4th base cancelled. There's a lot of stuff going right here for Vanya as he chases back in. I'm not sure about that with the turret there as well. I mean, 18 SCVs, this all feels nice, but you've got to remember that Vanya is basically on no tech behind this. It's just Ling, Roach, Ravager, Corruptor. And while at a baseline, that's an okay army, in a longer game, you need something better than this. So unless you can go with round 2 and overwhelm uThermal this time around again, I'm not loving where he's at still.
Yeah, and one of the scary things about this kind of big old mech style is that, you know, normally you watch a Terran player and they lose all of their siege tanks and everything. You're like, oh man, that's going to take so long to reproduce. But you take a look, he's already got 4 or 5 siege tanks popped on out. Hellbat frontline is there yet again. battle cruisers still ready and waiting to actually get involved in a fight again, it does become a little bit more difficult to like truly reset the current mech player in this situation.
Yep. Absolutely. There's a few aliens running over that right side, just going to wander into a few Ravagers. Going to want to be a little bit careful about that, of course. I mean, at least you know that army's kind of moving down that direction, so you can potentially work around that, of course. I mean, that's a positive side of this as well. Those few lanes going to go running for these Hellions, trying to see what they can find. I mean, the Hellions obviously just going to pick away at a good few lanes, and more importantly, brings Vanya's army back towards his side of the map, giving uThermal even more preparation time. uThermal's the one that isn't maxed out. He gains a lot from making this fight not happen yet.
Yeah, he's coming in with the battlecruisers as well, which is actually going to take out quite a few drones over here. And Vanya is just kind of idling with his army. Now he's starting to attack on in, but the teleport comes out. He knows all the corruptors are no longer at this south side of the map, so the battlecruisers have nothing to fear.
Yep, that was kind of nice. Just again, uThermal doing exactly what he needs to do across the map, putting in some good work. I like what uThermal's doing, honestly. I think he's doing a really good job of this. Again, it's always scary when that first fight happens and that first attack comes through. But he really followed up from it well. And it's like, okay, it's a clutch hold. But he knows now if he just buys himself time, the next attack should be easy to hold off against as well. And I like that Vanya's drawing up and stuff. My main problem will still just be, this is Ravager Corruptor, and that does not trade well as the game goes on.
Yeah, he's just kind of been maxed out on the composition, and I think a lot of what Vanya has been trying to do behind this is he has been trying to get up additional forms of tech. I think he had an infestation pit finish up and stuff. Probably wants to start thinking about getting up either infestors to lock like Hellions and stuff down, or even just the Vipers and stuff with the blinding clouds. Yoinking battle cruisers, like there's a lot of utility that is going to be able to get from that hive eventually. But we already see that uThermal is getting ready for the next steps as well. He's adding on some Thors.
Yep. Thors obviously really useful. Obviously, they can help against the Corruptors. They can stop it from being Broodlords as well. And that's really important to have like a baseline of Thors to begin with. Because if all of a sudden like 10 Broodlords show up, you're just in trouble. But if you already have 3 to 4 Thors in the army, brilliant. Let's go with that, as BC's help in that regard as well. Here come those Corruptors looking for the BCs. One will go down this time around. They're going to try and drop a couple of Yamatos this time, and then they're going to turn and just keep on running. It's the ground army that's actually doing okay for Vanya, because a lot of uThermal's tanks to the left-hand side aren't in the fight on the top side of the screen right now. They just aren't firing at all, and that means these Thors are kind of on their own, and these Ravagers were able to trade out for a lot. That on top of losing the BCs, which have been so good at turning the attention back towards Vanya's bases. That really takes away a lot of what I think uThermal was, relying on in this game.
Yeah, I think that was a really, really nice attack there from Vanya, and it was a little bit unfortunate for uThermal that I think I was checking his battlecruisers. I know at least 2 of them did have tactical jump off of cooldown, but he may have just been a little bit busy, microing both his siege tanks and also target firing with his Thors and trying to get everything to go exactly as he wanted to. This is going to be a little bit tougher of an attack for Vanya to make work, running into a big siege tank line. Yes, he takes out a Thor and maybe 2 of the tanks, but that army is absolutely going to have to back off, and uThermal will be able to successfully establish that 4th base location.
Yeah, going to see the pathogen glands about to be done for those infestors. Adrenal glands coming up. Tank, Hellions, BC, +3, vehicle plane, all coming through. I mean, those are all nice for uThermal if you can build up again, and maybe he gets that chance. Vanya has just got the map, though, right? And
yeah,
just covering that map. All he really needs to do is stop uThermal getting out of 4 bases, and eventually he makes this kind of go in his favor.
Yeah, I think it's the funny thing about, I feel like a lot of these really late game kind of, I don't want to say turtley, because uThermal's obviously been out on the map trying to do harassment and stuff, but it's a slower composition, is that uThermal's going to be expanding much more slowly and is of course taking much better trades if you look at like resources lost. But Vanya, like you said, has total control of the map, so he's going to be able to just take the map and should be able to try and deny that 5th base. But the scary thing here is that if uThermal does manage to, for example, take a 5th base, he does have a lot more of the map that he's just not going to be mining out nearly as quickly. And there is a point where Vanya, there's like a little bit of a timer, right, for Vanya. It's not a timer that he has to worry about too much just yet, But like 5, 6, 7 minutes from now, if he's not really able to make a whole lot of damage happen or break through uThermal, I do start getting a little bit concerned.
No, I'm kind of with you. Like, in my eyes, I thought uThermal was broken. I thought that last fight kind of really did it, but Vanya just didn't have the rebuild off the back of it to really kind of go through and, seal the deal, right? And now here we stand in a situation where it kind of feels as though Vanya is genuinely... I don't want to say he's in trouble, but he can't end the game. And he doesn't have an army to maybe swing through this 5th base either. And I feel like that's the thing he just needed to do to kind of have this game on lockdown. But without that, I'm a little bit more concerned for him. Feelings going down here, nothing major. Those Hellions would love to hit a mineral line, of course, but at least Vanya is stopping that from happening.
I do think that it's important to note that a natural thing about StarCraft is that the more you expand, the more spread out you are. So for example, there is only the one siege tank and a few Hellbats covering this top left-hand base. So uThermal has to kind of reposition some of his units around, but he also needs to make sure he has enough units to prepare for the big attack getting set up on the bottom right-hand side. I also really love the Neural Parasite. Neural Parasite against the army composition that uThermal has been going for. Not only battle cruisers, but also even the siege tanks and the Thors are going to be great Neural Parasite opportunities.
Yep, absolutely. As you see, that base does go down. That's what we were talking about. Vanya has the money to rebuild off of this as well, but uThermal's going to push already. If uThermal can get away with pushing right now, it's going to be kind of cool, right? If you can push right now and kind of make the most of this before Vanya rebuilds, I'm kind of down for the Neural Parasites are going to be terrifying, though. If they can go off right now, it doesn't seem as though Vanya has found those opportunities, though.
Yeah, it gets really weird, too, because there's still a lot of siege tanks around. And as soon as you realize there's Neural Parasites, if your siege tanks are sieged up anywhere, you just scan and start right-clicking down those infestors, and they are going to evaporate. Neural Parasites are going to be canceled very, very quickly, but you'd have to be a little bit cautious about this. The positioning of things, how slowly uThermal decides to move forward, and also, when does uThermal feel comfortable backing up? Because his army is gradually bleeding out, and it's trading really, really effectively right now, but there is a point where the Remax is going to start getting a bit scary for him.
No, absolutely. Not wrong. Is just going to keep on pushing through here. uThermal trying to come in from this right-hand side, trying to take down this hatchery. I mean, if he can get rid of it, he really does put Vanya down on those 4 bases. Maybe top left gets up for 5th. But yeah, I mean, just seeing the infestors. And the thing is, the tanks are sieged. And if the tanks are sieged, it's so difficult for those infestors to get into a good position to begin with. And that is kind of the problem, huh?
Yeah, but it's also kind of weird now too, right? Because now he has to figure out, how do I get out of here? Oh my God, uThermal just doing such a great job making sure those infestors cannot get the wraparound. I think that was just a little bit of experience and star sense there from uThermal saying, all right, I know those infestors were sitting over there. I have a feeling he's going to try and wrap around and get Neural Parasites off. Goes to the scan, picks up 2 of the infestors and softens up 2 more of them. Here we go. They're coming in again. There come those Neural Parasites. Where's the scan? There's no scan, but I mean, there's nothing actually to attack them anyways.
Yeah, he got the sieged up tanks, and once the sieged up tanks are obviously in control, then it becomes a big problem because you just can't hit those infestors from range anymore. So yeah, that definitely goes a long way to helping.
A bit of a weird spot now because uThermal did lose a lot of very expensive units over there. He doesn't exactly have a massive mineral bank, but he does still have a pretty decently sized army, but not if all the siege tanks are unsieged. The Thors basically going to be fighting kind of on their own very soon as all those siege tanks start getting taken out. And man, Vanya is just dominating this fight. Those last 2 fights are exactly what he needed.
GG's. You know, I really think we can kind of come back to this though and say like, hey, like this was not like a super clean game from Vanya. Even though it seemed like he was always in the lead, there was definitely moments where it felt as though uThermal had a whole bunch of potential all over again. Okay, it didn't actually pan out like that, but that's what makes uThermal so scary, to be in bad positions, but to be able to still say, oh yeah, actually this is going to be fine, just, you know, if I can do this or do that. Because think about it, like moments before the end of that game, he's put Vanya back down to 4 bases. He's getting his 5th base back up. If he can just deal with one more wave of Vanya's army, game changes. So yeah, we go into light shift for game 2. I'm full of hope because game 1 was actually pretty fantastic for your Dragon.
I really enjoyed game 1. I do have like that nagging question in the back of my mind, like, did uThermal just kind of outstay his welcome there with that like that big attack and everything we were talking about? Okay, how do you get out of there, right? Because you're You're deep on creep. uThermal was scanning. I think he was maybe killing off some creep tumors here and there, but like he wasn't making an active effort to clean up all the creep that he was sitting on. So he was sitting on creep. And then he went in, he was really staying for quite a bit of time just to get that second hatchery kill. And it kind of makes sense, right? Because you were talking about Vanya has the entire map. uThermal needed to do something after having his 5th base delayed. But the longer you stay there, the more difficult it is to retreat because you have to unsiege your tanks to retreat. And as soon as you unsiege your tanks, now you're vulnerable because you're just still sitting on creep. It's like, when was going to be the right time to actually retreat there?
I guess never. I guess that's when you need to be like hitting the other side of the map to create an exit path for the right side, but he just didn't have the units, right? And that's partly because the 5th base didn't come up for such a long time. It's 100% because of how the earlier part of the game played.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point. Yeah. I think to uThermal's credit, he tried to do like a very light harassment with like, I think we saw like 5-6 Hellbats that ran up to the top left-hand side, but Vanya was actually on top of that as well and able to deal with some of that multitasking harassment and stuff that uThermal's trying to set up. Really, really well played there toward the end by Vanya. I agree. There was definitely some good positions that uThermal was able to get in, but Vanya still had a really solid defense up once he got up all of his hive tech, I feel.
Yeah, no, he got into a good position at some point and he kind of just ran with it, right? Like he got there, he did what he needed to do. As in the bottom right hand side, taking game number 1 is our blue Zerg player. It is Vanya.
And up here in the top left hand side of the map, the red Terran player from Team Liquid, he is Liquid Thermi. By the way, just a little fun fact here for you, Wardy. In the groups, both these players are sitting 1-1, but actually, both of these players, both of their losses come from the same player. It's Hero Marine, who is heavily expected to top the group. So I think so far, I would actually consider like in a sense, like this is maybe a little bit unfair because it's not like Hero Marine's unbeatable, right? But if you just say this is a 7-player group and you just assume uThermal comes out on top and beats everyone, like in a sense, both these players are kind of like they haven't lost to anyone they wouldn't be expected to like probably have a hard chance against anyways, right? So this is a pretty important match to me because I think these two players, you were talking about this in the pre-game kind of chat that we had, that I think that these are the two players who are going to be kind of fighting for that 3rd, 4th place spot.
No, I'm 100% with you. I think for me, uThermal is definitely in that 3rd, 4th place spot. But in a weird way, because he's kind of been so unconfident against Zerg lately, I'm like, okay, but maybe Vanya can be one of the guys that beats him, but uThermal still makes it there, right?
Yeah.
You know, if he can show up against Drogo and Zolbo, etc., like he should be up there. But yeah, I mean, it's like it's uThermal, it's Vanya, it's Denver, and maybe Drogo, I want to say, but then apparently Lilbo beat Drogo today, which obviously makes that part of the group very interesting too. Kind of keeping everybody alive in this.
Yeah, all that training for your life to avoid paying off. Sorry. No, I think that's a really good point. And Drogo, I think, was the other name that I was on the lookout for there, but maybe having a little bit of a rougher run with just that last match. But yeah, I think this is going to be a very competitive group for that 3rd, 4th place spot. Very much so. So I think the impact of this match, we're going to look back like 4 weeks down the line or so, or not 4 weeks, but 4 weeks down the line when the entirety of the season is wrapped up. We're going to be like, man, that uThermal versus Vanya match now. But I think at the end of the group stages, we're going to look back at this match and be like, I think this had a pretty big impact on who advanced out.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely a match that can, and honestly, this could be a match that even affects 2nd place as well, which might sound crazy right now, but if like Vanya and uThermal go on a tear against everybody else, you know, it's possible these guys beat a laser, right? They could contest 2nd place in the group. It really is like it's a high profile matchup for the middle of the group. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, even though you just basically also said that a laser is going to lose to Hero Marine, I mean, I don't know what Wardy or a laser did to Wardy to just piss him off, man.
Oh, I'm just playing to expectations, Fear Dragon. You know what? You're the only person mad at me because 99% of Twitch chats on my side as well.
Does Wardy like anyone?
Clearly like Vanya, man. I chose
that's
Vanya
true.
to win.
I've been talking about Vanya. I'll give you that one. Yeah.
Thank you.
We do have the openings kind of shaped up. We obviously did have a Reaper opening this game. It's worth mentioning we didn't have that last game, but that might be heavily related to the fact that he was going for a little bit of a cheekier opener there with the battlecruiser opening. He wanted to get out that fast marine, kill off that overlord, deny the scouting information. This game is looking a little bit more normal with a Viking follow-up as well.
Yeah, super standard from uThermal, really just playing bio off of a 3 command center setup. He's just gone back to the bread and butter, right? He just wants to play nothing weird, nothing wild. I mean, back in the day, uThermal, while he did always mix in a bit of the mech, I always thought he was at his best when he was playing bio, because I say this every single time we cast uThermal on DreamHack, to me, he's a micro terror. His multitasking and his micro was kind of the best in Europe until Clem came along. I think it's pretty fair to say, while Hero Marine would have been more focused on like macro and strategy, it was really uThermal always microing that was very impressive. And that really stands true. And obviously you see a lot more of the micro potential come through when someone plays bio than when they play mech.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It's always fun to see like the differences of those players that are willing to actually mess around with the mech, but then they go back to the bio and kind of how things shape up. And I think it's one of my favorite things when we get to watch the TVZs where they do kind of shift things up back and forth between the two. And we get to see like how the game completely changes with these like pretty different styles and how it changes the nature of like when you're more of a defender against like very mobile harassment versus having the player that has like a really, really strong standing army, the difference of creep spread and everything. Like it almost is like just changing the matchup in some ways sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, it's absolutely like changing the matchup. As Hellions picking away at a couple more of those creep tumors, staying active, and I love that, of course. One of the big things about being successful with bio is being able to be successful with your initial Hellions, right? Because they are opening the doorway for you to do pretty much everything you need to do in the mid game.
Yeah, gotta always be on the lookout for that kind of stuff. Well, Wooded Mines are starting to pop out soon. The first medevac on out. Want to see what is good old Schlappy gonna be putting into that medevac, go across the map with, because the day I see a Terran player sit around at home with his first medevac and do absolutely nothing is a very strange day.
Yeah, unless you've like scouted the incoming all in, right? Then
yeah,
that's like the very rare occasion that wouldn't make any sense at all. Nope, he should absolutely be getting aggressive here sometime soon. 1-1 upgrades are well underway. You know, combat shield isn't there yet, but gotta remember the power of those medevacs this early on is the fact that, hey, if you get across the map and you take a fight, then you end up in this position where you're able to trade, and just lift and get out of there whenever a bad fight comes around.
Yeah.
So if you're missing an upgrade, as long as you have the mobility, aka the stim pack, to get you away from trouble long enough to lift up, you're probably going to be okay. That counterattack of Bane's already around the top side. They just sped up a little bit with that Baneling speed finishing, so we'll see if they can get anywhere and do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when David Kim decided to make StarCraft 2, he said, you know what? I really don't like Zerg that much. I'm not going to give them anti-air in the early game. So that is the blessing that we have is for Terran players, is that they do have that ability to get on out of there nice and early on outside of the damage from Queens. But man, after that Baneling run by, Bunker being taken care of, and one of the Widow Mines did get set off. But looks like, wow, Schlappy already ready at that third base location and comes back with his army, finds a bunch of those Zerglings. Very, very nice army movement here from uThermal.
Great catch on so many of those. In fact, every Zergling goes down, so
wow,
beautiful stuff, man. This game has just opened up to like a 40 army supply lead for uThermal. I mean,
that's nuts.
Yeah, it actually is nuts. There's nothing you really need to add about that. It's
Vanya? Okay, so Vanya loses all of that, and his reaction is, I'm going to start up my hive and get up the lurker den. I'm like, oh, Vanya, what about right now? What about your doorstep? Oh, no.
I guess his assumption is that, hey, if I'm not going to survive right now anyway, I may as well try and survive, get a better spot later. Which can kind of sometimes work, right? If you just about hold on, the Baling's just about scared, uThermal off, which in fairness, uThermal not full on attacking yet. And I say yet because obviously he's still moving across the map. So, yeah, we'll see what he can do. I mean, honestly, Hive's already finishing. He's not that far away from lurkers. You clear this one attack, you probably have lurkers out for the next one or close to it. Depends how much of it he clears up. Decent splits across the board. The concave was just good to begin with. There's a couple more Banes left in here. uThermal does let them connect on a bigger chunk of Marines, and that's the kind of thing that Vanya needs. to turn this into a winnable position.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of that drop harassment did pick off a few drones here and there, but I definitely agree with you. And now the lurker den's finished up, but there's a lot more banelings that are here. There's the pickup and back off, but like you were kind of saying before, if you manage to survive through a lot of that and get some decent trades, and I think Vanya did, absolutely to his credit, all he has to do is make some of the hydras and he can actually start turning them into lurkers and have much more defensible positions.
Yeah, this next round of units from uThermal going around the top side. The Widow Mine gets a good connection. Vanya just wasn't expecting him to be there. There's one more, and he does know about it, so he's going to send that one link forward, but the others followed in. They were like, we want to play too. Well, that wasn't great. Now uThermal can drop the main and push around the top right, and that may be what Vanya struggles with the most. But we mentioned those lurkers. He's gotten to the point where they're actually going to get to come in and see some play. So he's kind of getting past the harder part of this. He's getting the lurkers, and then you can settle down, and maybe that's where he plays out of this. Maybe he'll have those lurkers and he can take some better fights.
Yeah, uThermal doing a nice job with the attempt at multi-pronged harassment over here on the south end, the north side at the same time. Has those Widow Mines set up as well. So if Vanya isn't paying attention, it just kind of has his units attack moving into some of those Marines and stuff. Those Widow Mines will obliterate his army. So really ensuring that Vanya has to pay attention, but Vanya's been doing a good job with this as well. He has been able to avoid a majority of the big damage that uThermal's been going for. And now that, like you were saying, there are a decent number of lurkers out on the map, this gets a lot more complicated. This isn't a uThermal who has a bunch of siege tanks and stuff ready and can work away at some of those lurkers from afar and get into a nice position. He's gonna have to rely on a lot of mobility plays like this one.
Diving into this main bases. Well, he's got a couple of Widow Mines to slow the Lings down. Whoa, managed to get both of them to go off, but he's gonna kill off the adrenal glands and also the spawning pool, of course, then. So that's actually a really big pick-off as the lurker den was there too. Obviously, that was starting to be defended, so I wasn't able to kind of continue through. These lurkers are going to burrow up next to that bunker. You see these Lings going down. These Marines are going to try and get around the back. The multi-pronged aggression of uThermal's working out wonderfully. He just needs to defend back at home at the same time, which he's definitely on his way to doing. He's definitely putting in a good effort over there. Just needs to deal with those lurkers, as man, Vanya just can't deal with these drops for the life of him.
Yeah, but uThermal also is still struggling with those lurkers on the other side of the map. And I mean, even on his own offense, the lurkers have been shutting him down every single time, but he's just been doing a nice job of evacuating out. But there's two lurkers over there that he's just dropped on top of. And I think he did finally realize it, but loses a lot of units in the process. I don't know if he just hasn't had scans available or anything, or maybe he just doesn't want to take on the lurkers head on, which is a very understandable sentiment. But it has been pretty rough for him dealing with these lurkers.
Yep, lurkers have definitely been the key for Vanya so far to kind of make this a little bit more bearable. On that evac coming around that bottom side. Marines here going to grab a few hydras. Lurkers burrow up again, though. The problem for uThermal is that while Vanya did take the dive to tech up into lurkers, uThermal never took the dive to tech up against the lurkers, right? You know, where's the Ghost Academy, where's Liberators, or anything really? All he's got is tanks, and tanks can do a good job if there's enough of them in the right places. 20 SCVs going down. uThermal, meanwhile, has killed 50 drones, so you can afford to lose some workers as long as he can try and hold the base. He's killing bases as well. I mean, lose this base, though, you're down to 2 bases. It's just going to survive, Fear Dragon, and that is a cleanup from uThermal. And Vanya still has so much to deal with on the other side of the map. Overlords are going down. Looks like +3 carapace will finish, but not sure if that's going to save this game for him.
Yeah, a beautiful set of trades at the very end over there. That planetary fortress holding the line. There's still drones going down somewhere in the main base. The Widow Mines, 61 drones have gone down in the last like 30 seconds to a minute and a half, 40. And I actually want to say the craziest thing about that is that Vanya still has 45 drones alive after 61 drones died.
Yeah, he has been doing everything he can at points, right? It's been, honestly, this has been kind of just a crazy set of engagements, because uThermal to me was always kind of leading. Vanya made that risk of getting to lurkers, and it worked. And they definitely traded well, but uThermal was able to make just as much chaos in the mineral lines and the bases of Vanya, and that's definitely turned the the favor onto his side. Now we wait to see what's next. Widow Mine drops coming through. He's not happy with only 60+ workers killed. He wants more.
Oh my god, some great connections too, and he's gonna get out of there with 2 of the Widow Mines. I also want to note really quickly here, Wardy, that there is only one overseer out on the map. He just made that Overseer. It's also a slow Overseer, I think. So cleaning up these Widow Mines has actually been a really big problem so far for Vanya.
Oh yeah, they have not been they have not been well dealt with in the slightest, really, which is a shame. But I mean, such is life at times, right? And I mean, it's just been a crazy game. It's difficult to deal with mines when they're all over the place. It's one of the strengths of Terran in this kind of phase of the game.
Yeah, it's so funny to see just the total change up in style that we were talking about. You know, when you go from the mech style where you are sitting on like a siege tank, Thor, battlecruiser army, a much slower thing, and then the next game, uThermal just cranks it up into a totally different degree. You know, completely changes his amp and says, "All right, I'm gonna play a bit of a different tune over here. See if you're ready for it." And he has been kicking butt with it.
He really has been. It's been very fun to watch, to be honest. More than anything else, it's just been all over the place, action-packed. This part of obviously uThermal just slows it down a bit and resecures because he was losing a lot of bases himself. Like he was nearly down to just 2 bases. That mine, man. Yeah, he was nearly down to just 2 bases of his own. That left side planetary just about held. So I don't mind that uThermal slows it down and says, hang on a sec, like, this has been crazy. Let's let it settle down. Let's not throw as much across the map and actually, you know, try and figure out properly where we are at. The answer is in a good lead, but it's still difficult to engage into your opponent because, hey, there's a heck of a lot of lurkers still around.
Yeah, there's still just no signs that he wants to deal with this in the way that, I mean, I think I see most Terran players deal with it, like especially a player like Clem or something, and just getting up the ghosts. And I wonder if maybe you would know a bit more about this, Wardy, having seen literally, I think, like 20 hours of StarCraft every single day for the past like 4 years. But is this like a uThermal sort of thing? Like he just doesn't want to get ghosts? Because I know there have in the past been players that are like, yeah, you know, it's just the control for it and everything is just not my style.
I think he'd get ghosts if it was a bit more of a normalized game. I think right now he feels like, yes, they probably would help, but he also probably feels as though he doesn't want to risk teching up to them.
Yeah.
I don't know, like uThermal can be very stubborn in his ways for sure. But I think in this, like he also knows what's right to do at the right time as well. And, well, maybe ghost would be right, you know, this time around as well. It's also not a necessity, right? I think he's just far enough ahead he can make it work anyway. And that's where sometimes the stubbornness of uThermal can definitely shine. So, yeah, kind of a uThermal thing, I guess, is what I'm getting towards at the end.
Yeah, makes sense. It's a bit of a supply block there for Vanya. He's finally lost enough overlords at his front door that he does need to make a few more over here and gets back up to the max out supply. uThermal is still kind of going live with that drop in the main base until finally gets pulled and yoinked back into the Hydras, taking care of those. The Vipers finally coming in handy there. uThermal has a big army on the south side, but he also has another army that's moving up to secure the north side base. And I feel like if he's able to find another opportunity to draw that army over to the main base again, and then hit on the north on all of the fresh bases, that is kind of Vanya's important lifeline right now, is having all those fresh bases up.
As Bayon's going to start simming in. Hydras taking a good bit of damage. The Lings are going to start overwhelming a bit, though. This is where the tanks aren't as good, right? Where, you know, you've just got so many Lings, the tanks get overwhelmed. They can't really do everything they want to do to help out. And in that regard, Vanya actually ends up taking a pretty decent fight. The Vipers go down in the natural. That's such a shame because that obviously is just a really good way to nullify the effectiveness of so much of uThermal's army. That Adrenal Glands is just not allowed to finish this game, right? I mean, I'm not sure how much it would have made a difference if it was up, but
if he goes for it.
Yeah, if he goes to spawning pool, looks as though he's just going to ignore it for now, which, to be fair, I can appreciate maybe getting into the main and looking for the tech there because he knows the lurker den is there too, and that's probably the one thing he's worried about more than anything. Too many more lurkers actually getting out on the map.
Well, speaking of lurkers, they are going to try and burrow in on top of this army with no support. They are not going to find a whole lot of value. The Adrenal Glands is, in fact, canceled yet again. And this is turning into a weird base for base trade, except the difference is uThermal is able to eventually clean up all those lurkers on his side of the map, and he's still able to sit on that other side of the map and go into the actual tech here in the main base.
Yep, yeah, uThermal's definitely handled this one well. He's just got so much power in the main. And like you say, he's just not dying off on the upper left, basically, right? It's taking him a while to clean up, but he's getting the cleanups, and that's the most important thing. So getting the job done in the end, as we do have the next CC moving out to the 12 o'clock position. That's coming into place. Yeah, he's just expanding everywhere at the same time.
Wardy, let me tell you the list of units that Vanya can currently make. Lurkers and drones and overlords. That's it. Sorry, I have removed lurkers, though. Now he can make Zerglings without adrenal glands. Oh, no.
Yeah. It's been going this way for a long time, though, right?
Yeah, it has. It has.
We've been kind of waiting for this to play out in this way, as uThermal was... Like I say, he slowed it down when it got a little bit too crazy. Just wanted to make sure, hey, I'm not, it's very easy to tunnel vision, be like, oh yeah, this is great for me, without actually settling down and say, wait a sec, but is he dealing too much damage? And it's like, in this case, I was like, no, he wasn't. It's hard to tell that in the game if you're still going full speed ahead, right? So I'm very happy that he kind of slowed it down and said, let's just make sure I'm not kind of being silly and throwing this game a little bit or anything like that. As we do continue to fly a couple of different places, uThermal obviously has an army back at home, and once that gets brought into play, it's going to be pretty impressive and should be able to do a lot. This hatchery will survive, which, I mean, if a hatchery wasn't surviving against 2 marauders, I feel like then it's probably a reason to just GG them there.
Yeah, beautiful blinding clouds are going to lock down those tanks, but I think even with that, we end up seeing that just some nice splitting out over there from uThermal. Still takes some pretty decent trades, knocks out a lot of the lurkers that are not going to get replenished at all. And there finally is the GG coming on out. uThermal ties up the series 1-1, and we are going to a game 3, Wardy.
We are going to a game 3, and I think a series that deserves a game 1. Vanya obviously took control and really played it well. Game 2, uThermal kind of took control and played well. And both games had those similar ideas of like one player was ahead, but the other guy was able to stay in it, make it chaotic, trade out, make it close. And, again, I never really thought that uThermal was losing this game, but it definitely got scary at certain points. And if he doesn't do as much as he did while defending back at home or losing a base back at home, whatever, then it is a much scarier story and probably is a completely different game.
Yeah, I think especially once Vanya was finally able to get up that lurker tech, it did feel like there was a bit of a shift going from uThermal was doing really, really well with all the harassment and everything to, oh, the lurkers are kind of causing some problems here for uThermal, but like you said, it wasn't ever falling too crazy far out of uThermal's hands by any means, but definitely a very, very fun game and a fun series so far. Now, Horty, this does lead me into my next question, though, is we go into game number 3, and this is actually like, it's probably one of my favorite things about players who are diverse and going for like mech and bio, where it almost becomes like a different matchup, right? Depending on what you do. And after doing that for mech for game 1, bio for game 2, he did lose his mech game and he won his bio game. Does that just mean game 3 you go with the decision of, well now I'll just go back into bio, or is it kind of like a back and forth, shake them up and constantly just make them play like a different matchup every time?
It definitely reinforces the idea of playing bio because you won with bio. I think a lot of it comes down to the map, and at the end of the day, why would you not play bio on Oxide, which is our map number 3?
That's
just
true.
A good bio map. You can play mech here, just bio is just good enough on it. Like tanks are really powerful in even just lower numbers, so marine tank can be really good. I would be kind of shocked if we saw uThermal straying away from that. In the top right corner of the map, he is the red Terran player from Team Liquid, uThermal.
Down here in the bottom left-hand side of the map, we have the blue Zerg player. He is still looking like a very, very strong contender for this series. He is Vanya. I love those kind of little like mind games, or just like the mental gymnastics that go on with like planning out your best of 3 series and stuff. And having those kind of cards under your belt of like the different play styles and everything. And it also makes me think of like, okay, like you have these options basically that you're laying out on the table, and it's setting you up for game 3. I think I love those kind of plays, or like that kind of, I guess, play style in a sense, where you have diversity and you're literally setting up for later games with your openings.
Yeah, the mind games throughout a series is always a lot of fun to kind of track and to figure out, right? And it's such a massive part of StarCraft, and some players have gone such a long way just from being able to mind game throughout a series, right? Into, series planning. Some of the greats we talk about, like way back when, like MVP, for example, was just what set MVP apart from everyone else was he was able to plan a best of 7 better than anyone else was at the time of playing, right? And he was just able to come in and say, well, yeah, game 7 is this map, and this is my proxy 2-racks map, so I don't care if it's the last game. This is my strategy, and this is just how my series is planned out. And those sort of things won him championships, right? And that's been true all, since forever in StarCraft 2. So,
and Wardy, look at this. Game number 1, we were talking about how he skipped the Reaper and went into, I think he made Marine then Reactor to snipe off the Overlord, but he's going for the fast Marines again so they can deny a bit of vision also for the Overlord that might want to come in and scout. And I mean, this is what he was kind of like more similar, not exactly, but like more similar to what he was doing in the mech game. And this is going to shut down vision. Now Vanya is kind of left guessing for a bit.
This is a reactor first this time, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it is different than the first game.
Yeah, definitely a little bit different. I just want to make note that that's an even harder counter actually if he goes like roaches, because it means just even more Marines out a little bit sooner. And also on top of that, maybe this time we do see something with the Marine count building up a little bit. Maybe there's something there. But now we do just move into Hellion production, but it is that starport before we see anything like a third CC. So yeah, actually going to be putting the pressure on for sure this time around.
Yeah, and I think what's even cool to note is you were talking about this in the first game. Depending on the timing for those gas geysers, going into say like a battlecruiser opening isn't locked down to being a mech opening. You can go into like a bio style or other things depending on when you decide to grab your gas geysers, and if you just want to, obviously get up stim in your barracks instead of the factories.
There is the Roach Roaring already from Vanya. That's a really early Roach Roaring. We'll see exactly what he wants to use it for exactly. It's not uncommon to play some kind of roaches on this map simply for the way that this map just plays in general. It's a good Terran map, so why not play roaches and just kind of try and win or try and offset some of the Terran advantages, which are, hey, I can move into some really good positions with tanks. Roaches are actually just that little bit better at overwhelming those armies early on.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're up against, a decent number of those Hellions and stuff harassing around as well. Great defensive tool before you decide to go on the attack. There is going to be a fusion core drop down, but we do still first see a handful of Hellions and also a Widow Mine being made. So the Marines and the singular Widow Mine are going to be going across the map in the medevac. And in the meanwhile, the Hellions are going to be trying to probably hit somewhere on the ground and likely a different location.
Roach's Lings coming up defensively, and we are going to see those drones coming through too, just to prove that this is defense as well from Vanya. Drops to the main base uThermal, looking for an Overlord initially. Widowmine will zone out Zerglings pretty well. That supply blocks Vanya. He's got 3 more Overlords on the way. This Widowmine's going to do a lot. It should force these Lings back. Vanya, just managed that split away. I thought they were going into the center. Here come the Hellions, though. The Lings have to run from the main base, and that means the drop should go back in, but it's not moving back in. So actually, uThermal maybe not making the most of the opening. He still has the Hellions alive. The Lings have gone down. Now the drop is back into the main base as well, as a couple roaches show up on the other side, but it's only 2. It's not that scary.
Yeah, a little bit of a hectic game with a very small number of units for both sides, but looks like uThermal is going to be finally moving on back. The 3rd command center has been delayed out, I think, 2 or 3 times, and here come a few more roaches now turning into Ravagers as well. There's no siege tank or anything coming out, but the battlecruiser is about halfway done. I mean, he might have to use this defensively now, right?
Yeah, use it defensively, push this back. But of course, the thing is with using the BC defensively is it can teleport across the map as soon as it's done. In this case, he should be able to teleport safely.
Oh boy.
From the Lings, though. I mean, the good news for uThermal is he was able to evacuate the natural, but that's a cancel on his 3rd base, and the cancel on his 3rd base is obviously pretty scary. That slows him down a lot. He needs to lift that CC as well. You don't want to let it get too low, otherwise Biles would probably be able to pick it off. There's the BC, and Vanya's going to realize, okay, this attack is kind of done. He was morphing in Ravages in the hope he could stick around here and drop a few more Biles and keep on harassing. That's not going to be the case. He's now going to try and Bile his way home. I almost wish he would have canceled those Ravages, because now it just feels like that's extra gas wasted. That's just going to be stopped or killed off by the BC. I mean, a couple of them get away, but even still, it maybe could have been like 1 less Ravager that died. So yeah, now these Overlords in the wrong places too. This is the big thing for uThermal, is that this BC just so unexpected is able to get so much done.
Yeah, I do wonder now how committed of an attack that was for Vanya to make all of those units, and still has all of these Lings around, right? But he did manage to get a kill on the third, force the lift up with the natural and everything. How much is the battlecruiser going to be able to offset a lot of that damage he took?
Probably. I mean, the thing is, if he didn't lose the third base, I actually would be really confident for uThermal.
Yeah.
Losing the third throws this game into a position you don't see very often because it's rare that the Terran gets slowed down on the third that much. He's going to play mech behind this, by the way, and I will stand by what I said earlier. I'm definitely shocked by this. I think it's a good bio map, and I don't necessarily think he needs to go into mech here, but he will. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with playing mech. It's just I feel as though his bio play was definitely looking stronger in general too. We'll see how it continues. I mean, Vanya's already getting into this position where uThermal's going to struggle to take the third when it comes down. Obviously, that's rebuilt now. You remember what happened in game one where Vanya just went Roach, Link Corruptor basically, and just went for the burst? I feel like that has a bit more power this time around because of the damage uThermal took, losing that natural expansion, etc. I feel like that really favors Vanya on the opening, especially if you follow up with that aggression, which hits so soon after.
No, I think that's a really good point, and it's part of the reason why it was so effective. The Hellions are trading out versus a lot of the Lings over the front lines, but the Roaches are strong enough to push them back. The Battlecruiser finding a Queen over here, and the other Battlecruiser finding a building hatchery, and the Queens are far enough away that I actually think, especially with Yamato coming soon, this Battlecruiser may very well get at least close to killing the hatchery, if not killing it.
Yeah, definitely going to put up a bit of a fight. The BC goes running. Now some Hellions showing up, so these Queens will be in a bit more trouble. But Vanya says, I'm going to use this as a chance to go across the map with my other units. BC rightfully turns around and just goes home. Love the biles on that first siege tank. He does teleport the BC onto these units. However, okay, there's triple BC. Vanya misjudged this horribly. Wow.
Oh, doesn't even get the last tank. That actually would have been at least a somewhat of a pick off there.
I actually feel like this was so good. When I saw one BC show up, I was like, okay, but he killed a tank. He's going to get away. Then he dove for the second tank. It didn't go down. The other BC showed up, so everything died so quick. Vanya still like where he's at. It especially feels though Vanya's ground army is really not got competition, right? There's 3 tanks in the game. So as long as he can overwhelm the BCs, he's got a lot of potential. Can he overwhelm the BCs? That's obviously the golden question then. Well, it's possible. It's plausible.
I think one of the things uThermal's been very good about, and we saw it just in that last engagement, we saw it in the first game as well when he had those BCs, is that uThermal's been very good about being active with the battlecruisers as soon as they're all back to full hit points and they have the teleport off cooldown. So he's ensuring, he says, if you have a counter to the BCs, I'm going to put them on your side of the map. And then as soon as they show up, and you have your big counter attack coming in to like hit me, and it looks like I'm unprepared, I get to teleport home. Your units that counter my battlecruisers are not on my side of the map, so I get to both be offensive and defensive in a very short period of time. But this is one of those moments that Vanya is going to catch uThermal where he's not quite in that position, forces the teleport out on one of the battlecruisers, but is breaking through on the third base. And wow, that's it.